afternoon. It's a pleasure to welcome to Ottawa a great friend of mine and a true friend of Canada, the Attorney General, John Ashcroft. I want to take this opportunity to commend you for your courage and leadership in the largest criminal investigation ever taken. Your leadership in the war against terrorism and your continued effort to make our country a safer place to live. Today, my colleague Eleanor Kaplan and I will sign a joint statement of cooperation on border security with Solicitor General Ashcroft that will directly support the efforts of the Prime Minister and President Bush to strengthen the public safety for all of our citizens. The joint statement signals our clear intent to work on several key issues affecting our common security. It commits Canada and the United States to quick action in priority areas. We will focus on border issues dealing with deterrence, detection, and prosecution of security threats, the disruption of illegal migration, and efficient management of legitimate travel. As well, Mr. Ashcroft and I will sign a memorandum of understanding that will greatly improve the ability of the RCMP and the FBI to exchange fingerprint data. Since September the 11th, Canada has put in place an intensive $280 million anti-terrorism plan. And we know that any measures that makes Canada more secure also helps our neighbors and our friends to the south. Canada and the United States both strongly agree that we have to pull together on security issues that affect the safety and security of all our citizens. Even before September the 11th, no two countries worked more closely on law enforcement and security cooperation. Now the world is a different place, and we're engaged in a long-term struggle against a new kind of enemy that is not deterred by the prospect of prison sentence or even death. No nation is immune to terrorism. Today we are briefing Mr. Ashcroft and U.S. officials on both the plan and our anti-terrorism bill and public safety bill, our police investigations, freezing of terrorist assets, and our security intelligence efforts. Earlier today, we were in Detroit with the Deputy Prime Minister to discuss a range of border security issues, including integrated border enforcement teams to hone in on terrorists and organized criminals who try to abuse our common border and find refuge in each other's law enforcement agencies. I would now like to invite Mr. Ashcroft to speak, to be followed by the Minister of Citizen Immigration, Eleanor Kaplan. When they speak, we will then sign the agreements. Ladies and gentlemen, the Attorney General of the United States of America, Mr. John Ashcroft.
Well, thank you very much for that kind welcome, and I remember fondly having been in this room with you when you brought me here to see the Deputy Prime Minister on one of my earlier visits, and I believe we spent some time together at that time as well. It is a pleasure to be here again. Today, two mature sovereign nations have agreed to cooperate to enhance their defense against a common enemy. Law enforcement and justice officials of the United States of America and Canada have built an extraordinarily close relationship, a working relationship, a cooperative relationship. This relationship predates September 11th, but it has deepened in the months since then with the recognition that the United States and Canada have a fateful choice to make. Either we will stand together to combat terrorism, or we will fall together to those who hate our freedom and seek to see our freedom, liberty, and the kind of integrity and dignity we accord to individual citizens in our nations extinguished. The United States and Canada have chosen to work together against terrorism, and North America is a safer place as a result. Earlier today in Detroit, Michigan, our two nations announced a cooperative agreement to facilitate the flow of goods and services and people across the border. and to enhance security along the United States-Canadian border. The purpose of enhanced security is the facilitated flow of the kind of commerce and the kind of activity that our communities that are defined by the border must have in order for each to survive and each to be successful. Shortly after the tragic events of 9/11, it became clear that the congestion along the border could make it very difficult for prosperity to have the kind of success or opportunity to thrive that we wanted it to have. There were plants in America dependent upon parts produced in Canada whose continued operation was placed in jeopardy because we had congestion at the border. Our effort that we are announcing today is an effort to make sure that we have the security necessary to provide a free flow at the border so that we can have and facilitate the kind of commerce and exchange that allows each of our nations to continue to grow productively. It is an honor to be here in Ottawa, formally to sign this agreement and another accord making a new era of cooperation between the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the Royal Canadian Mounted Police a reality. I again want to express my gratitude and the gratitude that all Americans feel for the friendship and partnership of Canada during this time when all freedom-loving nations are under assault. You all are particularly aware, but Americans are keenly aware as well, of the special assistance accorded to the United States on September 11th and from that day forward, when immediately in the midst of the disaster, this nation welcomed airplanes which we needed to land quickly and assisted individuals who were displaced as a result of that particular operation. I want to thank Solicitor General Lawrence McCauley for his outstanding cooperation, for the fact that we have been working together over and over again prior to September 11th. And of course, again, to thank the Minister of Citizenship and Immigration, Eleanor Kaplan, with whom I have met previously, and with whom the Commissioner for the Immigration and Naturalization Service of the United States of America has cooperated in fashioning and shaping ways in which we can enhance the security and the facilitate the flow of our citizens across our borders together. And I want to extend my appreciation to the Minister of Justice, Anne McClellan, and of course to Deputy Prime Minister Herb Gray, whom I previously referenced, and I remember as a result of our meeting in this very room some months ago. With the signing of these agreements, border security and law enforcement cooperation between the United States and Canada will undergo a sea change, and it is a change in operations which will make far more easy the kind of interchange we want to have and the kind of flow that we want to have between our cultures. There'll be changes at the local, state, and provincial law enforcement levels, all the way to the highest levels of our two federal systems. Under the Border Security Agreement, joint teams of U.S. and Canadian law enforcement officials will widen and deepen their enforcement of security along the border. We will expand our integrated border enforcement teams, known as IBETs, to cover more areas and target priority ports of entry. This agreement also initiates a new era of coordinated visa policies between the United States and Canada. Cooperation in this area is important. It increases the number of Immigration and Naturalization Service officers and Canadian Immigration Control officers who work overseas to detect and intercept inadmissible persons before they enter our two countries. We have agreed as well to redouble our efforts in joint training of airline personnel, so that we provide a basis for the airlines and private sector being a partner to the United States and Canada in helping protect our cultures. We will enhance the sharing of intelligence and document fraud, irregular migration, and criminal activity. Additionally, I'm honored to sign a cooperative agreement between the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the Royal Canadian Mounted Police that will improve the criminal justice capability of both of our nations. The United States and Canada have agreed that the FBI will provide the Royal Canadian Mounted Police with electronic access to the Integrated Automated Fingerprint Identification System, or IAFIS, IAFIS. The IAFIS is the United States National Repository for Digital Criminal Fingerprint Images and currently houses over 42 million records. The integrated distributed imaging system currently used in all FBI field offices will allow the Royal Canadian Mounted Police to access these critical fingerprint images. This system has been employed at major domestic and international events and critical incidents such as the Olympics and the World Trade Center and Pentagon bombings. Our agreement today marks the first international cooperation and the first access to the integrated automated fingerprint identification system. And we're honored to cooperate with this provision because we believe that it will enhance the capacity of Canadian security officials to secure Canada in ways which will be helpful to the United States. I don't often quote you, but I am pleased to when I do. And on more than one occasion, Solicitor General Macaulay has indicated that a secure Canada is in the interest of the United States, and we believe that to be entirely so. With improved exchange of fingerprint data, the United States and Canada are equipped with yet another tool to meet the challenges of securing our shared border, providing that secured border can be a place where we facilitate the flow of goods and persons, as well as protect our citizens. It bears repeating that the attacks of September the 11th were not directed against any one nation, but against all freedom-loving nations. 86 nations suffered personal and individual losses as a result of deaths in the World Trade Center attack. When the United States and Canada act today in defense of our common border as mature, sovereign nations, we act in defense of our common values. Our partnership and the values of freedom and opportunity upon which it is based continues to deepen and grow in the months and years ahead. I thank you, and I am grateful to these friends from Canada for their cooperation. May God bless Canada and God bless the United States of America.
Thank you, General. I'd like to recognize some people in the audience today that are with us here. Gus DeLavinia, who is the Chief of the Border Patrol in the United States, and Michael Cronin, who has been the lead on the Border Vision Group, which has been a working group between Canada and the United States for a number of years now. I also wanted to pay a special thanks to Minister Kaplan and to Deputy Minister Michelle Doré. It has been a warm and cooperative working relationship that we've had in putting together this agreement, and I must say that it's been a real pleasure to work with you folks. It's certainly been an honor and opportunity for me to be part of this historic effort to broaden and widen our cooperative agreement in order to ensure the safety and freedom of our respective populations while also protecting the flow of commerce across our common border. This opportunity I've had to work with my Canadian counterparts has really helped me. It's strengthened my and reinforced my respect and admiration for Canada as a great sovereign nation that shares some values and principles and beliefs with the United States, and those being including the supporting and defending the dignity and freedom of all peoples, wherever they're located, and the belief that freedom and prosperity cannot flourish unless it's in an environment where people have free expression and where people can live their daily lives without the threat of terrorism. The joint statement on cooperation on border security and regional migration issues that we're going to sign in just a few minutes is just one step in a long number of steps and joint initiatives that we will take to show the world that Canada and the United States are bound together by some very strong bonds. This statement, I might add, is an extension of an ongoing effort that's been ongoing for a number of years where we have been trying to work together to protect our mutual borders. I'm looking forward to working with my Canadian counterparts in carrying out the terms of this agreement, as well as establishing additional protocols where we can work together more closely while at the same time respecting the sovereignty of our two great nations. I want to thank you again for the opportunity to be involved in this, and I would like to introduce my good friend and your Minister of Citizenship and Immigration, Minister Kaplan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ziegler. Mr. Ziegler is the head of United States Immigration and Naturalization Service. He's worked very closely with my department in the drafting of the cooperation agreement, which we will be signing in a few moments. My appreciation as well to Attorney General Ashcroft and my colleague Lawrence McCauley. There are a couple of features in the agreement that I wanted to just take a moment to note. One is Canada and the United States are both signatory to the Geneva Convention, and with the signing of this agreement, we have agreed to negotiate to end asylum shopping between the two countries. What that means is that there will be a requirement for an individual who wants protection under the Geneva Convention to make their claim in the first country that they arrive in. If that's in the United States, their claim will be made there. If it's in Canada, the claim will be made here. A second point that I think is of particular note, we have agreed as well that when we go shopping for biometric technology, we will go shopping together so that we understand the codes and can share that information. It's all part of our desire to do everything that we can to share intelligence, to stop people from coming to Canada or the United States in the first place. We recognize that when they arrive at our visa posts and ask for visitors' visas, if there's someone that we turn down because we think they're a security threat, we want to make sure that we tell our American friends, and similarly, if they've said no to someone that they believe poses a threat, we want them to let us know as well. Those are a couple of the provisions that I think will not only ensure that our border works better, but that we recognize that we have many opportunities starting abroad at our visa posts, at international airports, places where there are routes where individuals travel around the world. We need to share knowledge, intelligence, and ensure that both Canada and the United States do everything that we can to secure the interests of all of our peoples.
Okay, I did. Down here? Three.
Glasses for these pictures. Use the one without the glasses, please.
Okay. Very good. Change. Thank you very much. Is there time for a few questions?
Mr. Ashcroft, you've been very critical of Canada by saying that the border with the United States and Canada, was porous. Do these agreements now meet all U.S. concerns?
But we feel that both the United States and Canada will be well served by these agreements. You have to understand that the facts are that we have over 5,000 miles of border and that we have very few people on the border. And as a matter of fact, the resources that we are going to bring to supplement our resources are going to be at the places where there are border crossings. It's when you have that kind of border, it takes the kind of pervasive cooperation and trust that exists between our two nations to work hard to make sure that we have both the kind of facility of commerce and exchange and the kind of security that's important for us. We are pleased with these agreements and believe that these agreements are the appropriate steps for us to take.
How long will the American troops stay at our border?
Well, let me just indicate, I'm glad you asked that question. These people are coming in to help with the stressed workers who have been putting in overtime as inspectors and really doing INS functions, so that while they are individuals whose occupation has been in the National Guard, their function is to function in Immigration and Naturalization Service roles and in Customs Service roles. So they're not functioning as troops at all. And they're designed to come in and relieve those pressure points where we've had congestion that makes it difficult for people to cross the border. So these troops are not coming in any respect to make it more difficult for people to cross the border. They are coming in to make it easier for people to cross the border, the people at the right places who are doing the right things, who provide the basis for the tremendous energy that comes from economies that are interrelated and cooperatively productive. These troops will be here until we can hire the kinds of people in the Immigration and Naturalization Service and in the Customs responsibility to fully implement the kind of service we want to render at these border crossing points. And that's the purpose of these groups. And, you know, we're talking maybe about 600, I think that's it, National Guard's troops to come and help relieve some of the stress. And if you strung 600 people out across a border of 5,000 plus miles, and you indicated that they should work 8-hour shifts, and then you had to fill in for the weekends, that'd be less than one additional person per 100 miles. Now, if you think that's fortifying a border, you've got a much more active imagination than I do. This is simply a way for us to try and relieve some of the stress that's come as a result of the investigative responsibility and the customs responsibility, and we want that stress relieved. We do not want to coagulate the border. We want to facilitate the border. And so we want the flow to be very free, and that's why we're making these arrangements.
Mr. Ashcroft, much has been made of the fact that helicopters and other military equipment have been posted at the border at the same time. How would that be helping out customs inspectors and taking?
Well, you know, the ability to respond to emergencies along the border, when you have it as sparsely populated as we do, requires that you have to be able to get to the places very rapidly. And when you've got basically 1 or 2 people per every 200 or 300 miles, when you stretch out the border and you look at our monitoring capacity in the Immigration and Naturalization Service, if there's a problem somewhere, we need to be able to deploy quickly to try and provide whatever assistance there is, and that's the reason that those resources, they really mean that those are the kinds of resources you have to have when you are not in a situation of fortifying your border. They do not characterize the kind of situation you have if you have a fortified border. Yes, sir.
There's a perception, an urban myth, if you like, in the United States that some of the September the 11th terrorists came through Canada. Now, that doesn't appear to have been the case, but your comments about the porous border exacerbated that urban myth, if you like. Do you still think that we have a porous border? And is that what really lies behind the various agreements that you've come to today?
Well, first of all, none of the terrorists from the September 11th carnage came to the United States through Canada, to my knowledge. Each of them that I know of, and we've done considerable work to trace their activities, came to the United States directly. And so we don't in any way want to suggest or reinforce or otherwise extend a myth which misperceives reality. And the stubborn facts are that these individuals did not come to the United States through Canada. Let me make another point, that I believe that the agreements which we have reached secure Canada in at least as good a measure and as appropriately as they would help secure the United States. Modern terrorism is frequently configured in the way that this most recent attack on the United States was. Training at one location, Afghanistan, planning of the operations at other locations, primarily Western Europe, the conduct of the operation in the United States. And with this fragmented approach to the ultimate achievement of terrorist objectives, one of the ways that we can prevent the terrorism is to disrupt those individuals when they move from one setting to another.
The agreement talks about harmonization of criteria and lists. So does it mean that if Mr. Castro is refused entry in the United States, we will refuse him in Canada?
When we talk about visa policy, both countries will make their own decisions. What this agreement will do is allow us to share information. This morning, for example, I informed the Attorney General that we would be moving to impose visas on certain countries later this week because we had deemed that it was necessary to do that. It is important for us to understand what the issues and problems are that the Americans may be experiencing, that they understand what issues and problems we may be experiencing, and so we have said that we would work together and conduct a review of the policies of both countries. The other important part of that is to identify individuals when they apply for visitor visas, either to Canada or to the United States, where we believe we've identified someone who may pose a risk or have refused a visa application, that we notify each other so that an individual, particularly someone who may pose a security threat, if they go first to the American embassy and they get turned down, then they come to Canada, they may have a different passport or a different name. That's where biometric information would be extremely helpful to make sure that we stop that person from coming here in the first place. Our goal, both Canada and the United States, in this agreement is to prevent people from coming to Canada or the United States before they get on the plane. If we can identify them when they apply for visitor visa, if we can identify them when they're at the airport through the immigration control officers, we're ahead of the game. And so that's the intention on the visa policy.
We have time for one more question. Somebody?
Mr. McCauley, what can you tell us about the information that Samir H. Mohammed was in fact an informant for the RCMP? And how embarrassing is that, given that he's now wanted on terrorism-related charges in the United States?
What I certainly will not do is comment on any activity, internal activities of the RCMP. It would be totally inappropriate for me to do so.
Why is he not wanted on charges
Thank you.
in Canada?
I'm going to get my pen before I leave.
Oh, yes, sir. Thank you.